If I had to pick one peptide with the most legit shot at being called the game changer, BPC-157 would definitely be in that conversation. It has the strongest data on animal healing, and it has almost no human clinical trial research. And still, this compound is the one that most people won't stop talking about. And this combination is no coincidence because there is a lot of controversy. And today I'm going to give you the controversy, the data, and almost everything in between. Now, quick disclaimer before we get started, I'm a doctor, but I'm not your doctor, and I'm just one that's on the internet. So all of this is informational purposes and educational only. Not medical advice. BPC is not FDA approved, so make sure you chat with your doctor before you, let's just say, start doing any research. And so today, what I'm going to do is just kind of explain what the evidence shows and try to do my best to navigate through most of the controversies. Now, one of the first things I want to talk about is that most often we think BPC-157 and we think the gut. Now, we do that with most peptides because we want to simplify things. And most peptides, yeah, you can say something like tirzepatide, weight loss, MOTS-C, that's going to be mitochondrial function, CJC testosterone, increasing growth hormone. So a lot of these peptides, you say, hey, here's their mechanism of action, and here we can see and think about a lot of the benefits. Now, what's interesting about BPC-157 is it just has a plethora of things that are being researched for as far as its benefits go. Now, BPC originally being identified from gastric juice, so it's a naturally occurring amino acid sequence that is found inside of our gut. Now, from that gut origin story, the same signaling pathways overlap into other tissues. So, for instance, we not only get the gut lining, but then we can start to see a benefit to tendons, muscles, joints, brain tissue, blood vessels. And like I said, that's a little bit unusual for most compounds because we can usually categorize them as like a major benefit. So BPC has a wide variety of these benefits that are probably going to be shown in the research sometime soon. And the reason for all of the benefits is because it has many mechanisms of action. You know, one area of the research that is being highlighted is BPC and its ability to increase angiogenesis, the creation of new blood vessels, nitric oxide signaling, which is what helps blood vessels expand, and it seems to also regulate inflammation, cytokines, and cell migration all at the same time. So those things do a ton of things all over the body, which we're going to go ahead and break down. So the real question is, what does BPC do versus like what are all the multiple ways that BPC interacts in our body? And to give you an example, when I was first practicing around 2017, I had a patient come to me suffering with hip pain. And I kind of walked her through the research and I didn't give medical advice. I said, hey, this BPC-157 is a very interesting compound. And this elderly woman who was in her mid-70s with the hip pain said, wow, this is weird. You know, it's not FDA approved. There's nothing to it. And I said, you know, research purposes only. But, you know, maybe in the future, this is something that hopefully may be beneficial. But we don't have a lot of data now. And a couple months later, this patient emailed me and said, hey, I got involved in some research. And in this research with BPC-157, she said, interestingly enough, my hip pain at the time of chatting with you was a 6 or 7. So it was severe. And it's currently about a 4 or 5 after researching with BPC-157. And she said, but that's not the big deal. The really big deal is were plaguing me at the time. She goes, I was depressed, I was constipated, and I actually had back pain as well. So while the hip pain went from a 6 to a 7 down to a 3 or 4, she goes, my back pain is pretty much alleviated. I have normal bowel movements and my depression is all but lifted. So it's very interesting to see when we think about just this working on the gut, but the other ways that when you fix the gut, and whether that's inflammation or any of the other mechanisms, can benefit the body. Let's start by talking about the mechanisms of BPC-157. So most of the evidence in the research is going to be on the gut, which is interesting because most people, I think nowadays, think BPC in tandem with TB500 in the Wolverine blend, and they think joint, muscle, tendons. Well, actually, BPC being studied in mice and rats has more research for NSAID-induced ulcers, right? You take ibuprofen, you get ulcers in your stomach, and other form of gastric mucosal injuries, inflammatory bowel, Crohn's, colitis, and any other things that, affect the gut lining. And then there's also some research for, healing after surgery. So more specifically, we see that BPC tends to strengthen the gut lining. We have these things called gap junctions in our gut, and these epithelial cells basically of your gut are there like castle walls to keep things out. And what ends up happening is if you get a smash in your castle wall, right, then all of a sudden you can get some enemies that come in, and that's kind of termed AKA leaky gut, or in an increase in your gut permeability, which we don't want because this can be, like I said, it can be bacteria, it can be certain proteins that come in the gut, and that's going to cause inflammation in the gut. Because basically, as these bacteria come in, you're going to send your body's soldiers to go and fight that bacteria. And not only one, you'll have that problem happening, but then you're also going to have collateral damage from that, right? So when the cells and bacteria and your cytokines and your immune system are fighting there, you're going to have byproducts, right? And that gets taken away in your bloodstream, and that will cause systemic inflammation. So the increase in gut permeability just doesn't affect your gut, right? Often when people have a quote unquote leaky gut, they will get systemic inflammation that can be in your joints, and often it will cause even some brain fog. So what we do see in some of the preclinical models is there is a correlation with BPC and decreasing systemic inflammation, and you'll probably also get an increase in nutrient absorption. So because if your gut is leaky or you're having problems there, absorption will also be an issue. Now, from there, we have some other mechanisms that we've chatted about briefly. BPC helps increase nitric oxides, eNOS, and this leads to an increase in the vasodilation. Vasodilation is the opening of your blood vessels. Your blood vessels can often double or triple in size, right? You've seen this at the gym. If you're sitting and you're working out and you get your you're doing your bicep curls and you can see your veins start to open up, and that's just, turning on the faucet, right? You're opening up the valve so a larger amount of blood can come into the area, and more blood flow is going to deliver more nutrients, therefore helping do whatever you need to be done. If it's your brain, helping, get rid of or increase your mental clarity. If it's getting to your muscles, it's going to help you produce more energy so you can not only get more nutrients there to increase your energy, but you're also getting rid of byproducts. BPC also seems to increase a lot of growth factor upregulations, VEGF. These growth factors are what drive angiogenesis. They basically tell your bodies to create new blood vessels, and that's like kind of, like creating new roads, right? Where, like we said, nitric oxide is what increases the capacity size of the road, and where VEGF is going to actually be creating new blood vessels. And then, like I said, too, there seems to be some evidence for your cytokine balance. In animal models, BPC seems to suppress pro-inflammatory cytokines and oxidative stress. It helps create a pro-repair environment, systemically. And another area I think worth mentioning is that we have some type of effect with BPC and serotonin. Now, 90% of the body's serotonin is actually produced in the gut, right? So serotonin, the happy hormone, you have more in your gut than you do in your brain. What does serotonin do in the gut? Many people know its precursor, 5-HTP, can help with suppressing appetite. Serotonin signaling in the gut just seems to improve its function most often. You can have too much, which will actually make you nauseous, or not enough, which can lead to a variety of problems. But this also then directly often correlates with your mood and sleep benefits. And biological, there is some evidence in animal models that BPC may be boosting serotonin, similar to like an SSRI blocks the breakdown. So that in a way does bring up serotonin. But these are often hit or miss. Like an SSRI can sometimes help people with gut issues. Sometimes it hurts them. Sometimes it gives people more energy. Sometimes it makes them more tired. So finding that right serotonin balance can be difficult. And there are anecdotal reports of people who take BPC, and in those circumstances, it leads to anhedonia, which is just an overall lack of feeling. It's not really depression. It's more like, I don't feel at all. Like I listen to music and I don't feel happy. But on the other end, anecdotally seems to help people with their mood. So serotonin can go in both directions. So what's really the takeaway with its mechanism of action is that, bottom line, it's going to hopefully help repair your gut lining. It's going to help with nitric oxide balance, creation of new blood vessels, and hopefully overall lower inflammation. So a lot of that sounds pretty good to me. And that's why a lot of times when anecdotally people are researching with this, not only are they getting gut benefits, but they also seem to be, improving their healing speed, where it's tendons, muscles, ligaments, or, messing with, helping with brain fog. Now, one of the larger issues, though, with BPC-157 is, and most people don't chat about this part, is there's really no clinical data, especially for subcutaneous injection. I haven't found a paper. If you know of a paper that has shown them using BPC subcutaneously, I would love to see it. As of right now, I've only found like intra-articular, and there's one where they injected it into the bladder. Now, both of those are great, but in 2025, there was a big narrative systematic review, and they screened looking for papers like what I had just said. And it's like, hey, the human data is super small, it's super narrow. And even in the data, it's usually pretty small. There is one paper where they used BPC intra-articularly. So they shot it in the joint, and 14 out of 16 people actually noticed a extreme improvement. So awesome, great. I love data. I wish we had more papers like that. And then there was another paper where they used it for interstitial cystitis, which is where it's an inflammatory condition of the bladder. And almost all of the people in that study actually had great benefits from the injection of BPC into the bladder. So we have a couple papers there for human, but those are super small. Now, the other thing is people argue about localized, right? So if you have a shoulder injury, people say, oh, in research, if you have a shoulder issue, you should inject the BPC over the area. There's really no evidence for that. And if BPC, if you inject it into your abdomen, it's going to get absorbed in your blood vessels and go everywhere. You may be able to make an argument that because it's localized, you might have a better effect there, but there's not a whole lot of evidence for that. But we'll see. And I'll tell you why. The research will probably never be there, but if anyone's telling you one way or the other, it's only going to be anecdotally. There's no paper proving that injecting something locally helps better than just, injecting it in your stomach. And I would also then say same thing for oral versus injectable. We don't really know. It does seem, though, that BPC is stable in the stomach, and it does seem to get absorbed. And anecdotally, there's lots of reports in that, and it's been used in rat and mice models. So from a safety perspective, if I were to conduct a study, I would love to start orally and then move over to injections. But, like I said, I'll explain why there's no research being done. So overall, looking at it, it's like, we definitely need some more information if we want to use BPC, in my opinion, more responsibly. And look, you want to be a maverick and go out there and start doing all these things, that's fine. I just think every person, before they jump into, researching and experimenting, they should know how much other research and experimenting has been done. And now I do want to chat about, the conspiracies. Like most people, look, I'm a naturopath, a doctor. I'm totally into figuring out why these things happen. And so a lot of people would say, oh, BPC is not FDA approved. It's a conspiracy. They're covering it up. But the reality of the situation is that a company actually who kind of quote unquote find and originally isolated it in the early 2000s, they basically isolated it, they patented it, they started doing trials on it, and then they just kind of shelved it. So the issue isn't like it's being suppressed. The issue is now that they did some trials on it, but not a whole lot of phase 2 or phase 3. But there's just no money in it at this point because they originally started doing the research in the 2000s. By the time you'd put in millions of dollars to show how beneficial this is, whatever company would go out and, hero this and say, hey, like right now, if I said, hey, give me $100 million from someone, I will go and research BPC. By the time all that research gets done, people will be able to make generic forms of the medication. So no one's willing to put the time and money in right now to do this. And this is why it's like, I'm in this weird situation where I'll defend companies like Eli Lilly. People get all upset about how much money and gatekeeping and da-da-da, but it's like, they are the ones that spent millions of dollars and who are currently spending millions of dollars, to get something like tirzepatide, FDA approved. And they have, patients with thousands of people who have put into the study. Same thing with retatrutide or retatrutide. They're the ones who are putting the money forward to show that it works. And I also don't think it's right for someone then to rip off the formula and then sell it for half the price when they're the ones that didn't have to put all the money down to put the research. Now, I don't know where the ethical line is there, but what I'm elaborating on the issue with BPC-157 is that we're probably not going to get more research on it because no one's going to spend the money. Now, the other issue is that currently in 2023, BPC was put on category 2 of the bulk drugs list. And because of that, that basically, took away doctors and compounding pharmacies, I would say, confidence in making it, because once it's on category 2, the FDA is kind of saying like, hey, we don't think this is safe. So if you go ahead and stick your neck out and prescribe this or make this, like, that's on you. And now, though, what recently happened in April of 2026, it was removed from that restrictive category, and it's actually going to be scheduled for review here in July. So keep your eyes on that. What we want is it to be added to what's called the 503 bulk list. And that happens, then a lot of the compounding pharmacies and more doctors are going to be willing to use it. At this point, most people are getting it from research purposes only. And there's just a ton of issues with that. Major issue is if you're getting it from research purposes only and something terrible happens to you. This just happened in Australia with a big batch of retatride where 7 people were hospitalized. There's no liability there, right? So if you go online and you inject yourself with this stuff and something bad happens to you, there's no one for you to sue. Whereas if you're getting it from a compounding pharmacy, you're getting it from Eli Lilly and something bad happens, then, you do have some form of protection. Where if you're just getting it from research purposes only, these people who are selling this to you, they have no liability. So it's basically a free lunch for them that they can go and take a compound like retatrutide and then ultimately sell it to you for half the price and then have no liability. So there's trade-offs, and look, you do what you need to do. As a doctor, it's like I have to always play the card that's going to be the safest. Now, what other things should be considered before researching with BPC-157? It seems, like I said, it's been pretty safe in most of the trials that have been done. There's been not a ton of major side effects. I mean, you'll get your basic, injection site irritation. Some people get some fatigue. Some people get some headaches. But there's not been a rigorous, large-scale human study to prove these things. Anecdotally, there are some people who report having anhedonia, which is like flat moods, flat motivation, and a decreased sensitivity to things like stimulants, whether that's caffeine or Adderall, modafinil, any of these kind of uppers. Past that, there is the big conversation about BPC and cancer, because BPC causes angiogenesis, which, if you had a tumor, yeah, you definitely don't want to probably inject, if I was researching, I don't think I'd take a tumor and inject it with BPC to cause angiogenesis, because, yeah, those blood vessels will then bring more fuel to the cancer. And in most of the cases when you have cancer, cancer is beating your body's immune system. So why would you want to speed up and give the cancer more ammo, for lack of a better term? But at the same time, you can make the argument that better blood flow may help your body fight the cancer. And on the other end, there are plenty of things that cause angiogenesis that do not promote cancer. Tadalafil, which we've chatted about in other videos, Cialis, that increases blood flow. Exercise increases blood flow. So a lot of things that are beneficial for the body increase blood flow, and those often have beneficial things for the body. So it's still up in the air. I would lean towards, if I had to guess, if we did research in a healthy individual, I wouldn't think that BPC would increase cancer rates. I would actually probably venture into thinking that it could help prevent it because of all the other massive amounts of benefits that it does throughout the body. So the bottom line here with BPC-157 is it's got a ton of benefits to it. It'll be super exciting to see how this compound peptide is shown to help humans over a long period of time, but it's got a big question mark on it for a variety of reasons. So I'd be interested if you have some research that I didn't cover, please leave that in the comments below. If you're into these kind of things, please stick around, hit the subscribe button, and you can join my school community where I have more information on compounds like BPC-157, testosterone replacement therapy, and a variety of other things. So thanks for stopping by. Until next time, stay vigilant, my friends, and God bless.